you tend to talk about something, they may talk about your mind. You go to contended they know the tribute, Tammy, but you be zero. Attended you could tend the tribute, Tammy, but you be zero. That tended a Charamambo, you generally give it, tended travel Chasona, and you could tend the tribute time, but as you can't Shabana, she can't see jealous when I say, it's a tended Chara, tended any tomba tenjungu to the tended tombi to the toy, I said, tended Tramoto, I tomba on the talk. That tended some double at Tandemoka, you generally with tendism, and a number 10 tomorrow in Bachasha, or some that tended to trauma, and a number 10 tomorrow to Kalemba. That tended tramo, that John Michel, and you would tend to Toba, some G, then on the top of my idea. Tended you could tend to a time, but you could tend to attend to Goena, and it tended you could tend to Ruchimim time, but you be sit down. Junzantana, Rangung or Yabala, Shangana Yabam, Rashi Yabam, around the Yabala, never Matona, a Chenam Yaba Minyabani, Yaba Yabani, never Matona, Chenam Yaba Yabani, then you have a quantum Chubana. Chenamji Yesude, Anekasore, Durutamji Yaba. Then a Yaba Kondo Chivana, Durutamji Yaba Kondo Chavana, Rangang Womeba Shula Towashi, go tende.
Thus, continuing, there's some remaining topic continuation of what we've discussed earlier today. And so where it says that by merely understanding that a sprout is a dependent origination, one doesn't necessarily understand that it's devoid of being real. Here, to understand that, we need to know that there are different levels of dependent origination. There's the dependent origination which is concerned with causality, that is, causes and effects, the dependent relationships between them. There's the dependent origination from the point of view of a thing having parts and the relationship between the parts and the whole. And then there's a subtler level of dependent origination in addition. And so here, by simply understanding that something like a sprout is a dependent origination, one doesn't necessarily understand that it's devoid of being real. That requires a specific understanding of a particular connotation of dependent origination. Because, and then the statement here continues by saying, to understand that dependent origination alone is not sufficient reason or evidence to prove that something is empty of being real. Again, it's saying the same thing, that seeing that something like a sprout is a dependent origination, or any kind of created thing, for example, like a sprout, is a dependent origination, doesn't necessarily entail that one understands that it's empty of being real, because in other systems of Buddhist philosophy, there are understandings of dependent origination, the coarser forms of it, that is, again, causality and relations between parts and wholes. Those levels of dependent origination, other Buddhist philosophers who are not Madhyamikas can understand those, but nevertheless, they don't understand that things are they're empty of being real.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did he?
You have a quantity of 되는 여바 콘도 치고 뜨루 점도 여바 콘도 치바나 아니란 거 오면 봐 슈라 또와 근데 참어래더라 또 슈라 또와 고위 텐데
Thus, by seeing the various sorts of defects of something existing by means of its own character, where it says here existing by means of its own character, that's own character or intrinsic character is synonymous with autonomous existence, existing by means of intrinsic nature, by means of its own intrinsic identity. These different terms are referring to the same thing, absence of autonomy. And so, or viewing something as autonomous actually would be, if something was autonomous, it would exist by means of its own character, it would have intrinsic nature, intrinsic existence, intrinsic identity. So seeing the various defects or problems that would obtain with something existing by means of its own character or intrinsic character, then when we find the existence of phenomena, that is, we find their existence, we only find their contingency. That is, that their existence itself is equivalent to being contingent. And so once one has understood that, one will implicitly understand, once one understands their contingency, one will implicitly understand that they don't exist by means of their own character. And so this relationship between dependent origination and being devoid of being real is connected with that, has that sort of relationship.
Oh yeah, and it has riba juji we cheje zande la chunga taro sai riba juji cheje de bare ra riba juji cheje de kang ge da ji ba da chu di yin ne bang ju ma dan ji zhe wa chun song yu tuang de la cha za lo sai wo de ge ani ta ka de sana kang ge da ji ba da chu di yin ne bang ju ba ce ga la dan ji zhe wa chun wa yi tuang de la sa dan zhong ge dan lai an da la de zhu la dan ne ani 告诉你，这些让信息出来这边怎么办吧？是吧？哦，对说，对，光头修把那些钱呢，是吧？这个让信息越把当，但那大把人呗，俺那对住的越把，对住的越把人的，俺那让信息，这些让信息出来这边怎么办吧？看个电竞，看着看，这告诉我了，看个。 对我的真是把计划了，但是把这个看个简单就把它，我他妈看个简单就把它处理一年帮助吧，但今这话就是为同行的了查查了，在中国的啊，这些让信息出吧怎么帮忙，这些让信息出吧怎么帮我这样，啊呢，告诉的，但今这话就我同行了的呢。 哎，这些越吧，这些越讲，这些让信息出完没吧？越讲让信息出完没吧？
So this it continues by saying that this is just like it appears in the expression of homage, which appears in the 60 verses on reasoning, as well as the commentary to that by Master Chandrakirti. There it says that in effect that. Seeing that
Oh yeah.
No. So there's the Rikpaduptra, the 60 verses on reasoning are a composition of Master Nagarjuna, and then Master Chandrakirti wrote an exposition and commentary on that. And in the verse of homage to that, it says, I pay homage to the Buddha, the Lord Buddha, who teaches that things being empty of arising and disintegrating has the meaning of dependent origination. So their dependent origination, the arising and disintegration of things, is understood in the sense of their emptiness, that is, that things don't possess any kind of intrinsic nature, any autonomous nature, rather they're merely contingent, that is, the arising and disintegration of things itself is contingent upon the causes and conditions that give rise to them and that that enable them to, or that cause them to disintegrate. So that that proves, or dependent origination then is evidence to establish that things are devoid of any kind of autonomous existence, intrinsic existence, and this, in order to understand that, we need to understand that how things are merely established contingently, as well as the subtler form of dependent origination, that things are just dependently designated.
Oh yeah, that's it. That deep in 다와 냐와나 다와 샤와나 민바 집안나시 배려서 도와 변변한 다와 냐와나 다와 샤와 이제 다와 냐카와나 아니 민바 집바신.
So the example that's given for what preceded is that when the moon is full, when it achieves the state of full moon, then it destroys the darkness.
Oh yeah, that is it. 国家帮助其他都下巴台了，国家矿主党国家帮助其他都下巴台了，国家帮助的主要帮助第二下巴。他国家帮助了，国家了就被看啥个参与，他结束就被他。谈不了，差不了就被看啥个，国家了就被看啥个参与的了。哦，那可能是我的是呢，山镇拉说，大多山镇拉说干了，动物啥不当心居住。 天朝老说前年呢，国家经济没了难，是他这个可是的是呢，当真老说是，当大多山镇老说高是国家现在具备身边的其他的县委下县呢，看这句话的是呢，俺呢，大多山镇是有空人民的是吧？山镇说看当，县改当，俺呢教改当，没多当吃当，吃完当，简当，看到说了。 看到说了干了，俺那县了东啊不当，西啊不当，脏西看完了，俺那看说了，俺那我是怕他点吧，是大多山镇说干了，东啊不东啊西不脏西就是是这一般怕他点吧就完他。长坡的妈妈，我们双坡妈妈是双坡妈妈说，天朝双坡妈妈说天朝了。 天朝老说完了，前几天他们国家经济没了拿了，上不妈妈说前几天朝了，天朝老说吧，前几年国家经济没了拿完，谁干了？天朝老说前几年国家经济没了拿，天天多把了，俺那学堂了教把他，这么教把他，对木了教把我，是他的西菜。
So next comes an explanation of the way in which we get one gets rid of anger and attachment. Specifically, has multiple subdivisions showing what desire is and how to get rid of it, showing what anger is and how to get rid of it. So the first of these is the characteristics or definition of a person who is involved with the desire, and then that's given in verse 137. Which says, poses a question, how does one recognize people in whom desire is a strong habit, who are predominantly engaged with desire? The answer is given in verse 137, which says, they are always like claiming the earth, which she gives a note explaining what that means. They are extravagant, greedy, and fastidious. Characteristics such as these are seen in people with desire. They always like dances such as claiming the earth, fun, flirtation, flowers, perfume, garlands, jewelry, color. It says here that sort of like makeup and things like that. And they are extravagant to others, greedy, fastidious, clever, alert, and speak frankly. Characteristics such as these are seen in people with desire, and their opposite is seen in people habitually inclined towards anger. Those whose behavior is a mixture are inclined toward confusion.
Oh yeah, that debate na no ju ji sha sa ani choja na so du ba dang yang choja na so ani ka sa do ra sha ba yi de sing ba.
So the example that's given for this is like the wealth-creating spirit that makes a variety of goods appear and disappear.
상제 남지 차견라 세당 최고 주라강给帮把他们家当大多南面谈的送对下谢节把的都于 top 开的人是呢上届他们就掐见了对下见了俺那卡塞当최고当主拉강说啊给的俺那掐把几笔西在话当上部他们家帮把他们家当在话当上部他们家帮我当俺那大多南面态度听到我的对下见的对下拉강说的对下见的对下都于 top 数 아니 다도 남미 태도 내와야 송소是吧上届남제 차견了세다 주라 칸라다 게레타제 방와다 다도 남미 태네 송
So then next, the question is posed, and the next topic is the method for, it says training really means taking control, gaining control over someone in whom desire is a strong habit. And verse 138 says, so the question is, how does one train or gain control over someone in whom desire is a strong habit? The answer for that is the Buddhas told those with desire that food, clothes, and dwellings are all to be avoided and to remain close to their spiritual guides, lamas or gurus. The Buddhas told those with desire that objects of beauty and quality which stimulate desire, such as fine food, clothes, and dwellings, here dwellings actually refers to temples and monasteries, things like that, are all to be avoided, and that they should always remain close to their spiritual guides.
Oh yeah, 아니 다도 라면 구에서 다도 라마기 되자지 예미당. 아니 마샤비 판연된 바기 바 구에 되자 투와 주라. 아니 뭐 대다를 아니 라와 담배에서 두자 대 라와 담 아니 시다를 아니 가서 되자기 당 아니 마샤바기 판연 담배 담바다를 담배 아니 대다가 냥수래배 취미 이지게 남샵 아니 이제 뽕아 주로 아니 차전라 내다 마대당 세고라 선비 년보들라 아니 콘트샤바게 장배연대 주니 장배연대 주니 승바레스 세소년보다 매우贵的 보와 당세 다 야르와 야 장배연대 주니
So then being made to work constantly by their spiritual guide will curb their desire, and through instructions in the training they will be able to rid themselves of their incorrect judgments. Here she uses mental approach for tsuminyiche, and I'm using judgment, or one can also sometimes translate that as incorrect attention to things. Those with desire were taught the 12 rules of training to counteract attachment to dwelling places, beds, food, and clothing.
세소년보다 매신 내 신rum보다 매우贵的 보아 다 된대라 이제 숨숨 쉬어요 이제 세당 초고라 셈비 연보 장배연대 주니 순서 세당 남라 세당을 접아 남라 내라 소와라 도바디 대련 도바 어치는 어디 장배연대 대련 도바 대련 도바 때바 차오 배너 참서 심부고라 미상와 치면 dro와 신어서
So with respect to those who are habituated to anger, within whom anger predominates, they should make use of dwellings and so forth that are the opposite of those, that is, nice things. So in the first case, the Lord Buddha taught to use these, avoid desirable things that give rise to attachment. In the second, he taught the opposite of that. People who are predominated by desire should use nicer things so as to cause their desire to diminish. And it's like the following analogy. If someone captured by a Brahmin ogre gives him unclean things, he will go away.
Oh yeah. That ma cheo kala karo niwa that the deja bonzu chen that deja cho bonzu jewa shaba la nga yebe nane. That abo kondi yimi shaba de imbai. Kondi yimi shaba de la. 你们拉着当年了，俺多么都把事情，说你我看了样再买吧。听你他也接下去是我的，他传播对吧？给听你们看是现那是，等你他现在那边你我没把了吃完，那让你个现在拿不切钱，那当初人都不说，那当年了当没都把，那把些钱了，你们拉这当年了，当没都把些钱了是，多不当天吧，多不见女娃见看了样，在外面别戳我听你是，多不见在问呢，你在外面吧，你闲了戳我听你，你他年纪是，他看他接什么的，他接不认识，他接是的啦，女娃看了在面吧，听你他接是，觉得，有的戳我听个，你让当嫌你个。俺让先你个给他转把汤，我给他转把钱把人家提上去，看这，搞我动作啥玩意？看这搞我动作啥玩意？经常出这么些了说，那些看人就太贵讲，空着几个转把钱，是吧？那些钱呢，提让先你俺给他贵两把钱吧。
So next shows the way in which we should think about the defects, disadvantages, or negative consequences of anger. I'm translating this as negative consequences of anger. And the verse here it says, if one wants to get rid of anger, one should think about its disadvantages or the negative consequences of it. Through anger, those who are powerless only make themselves look ugly. But one who has power and is merciless is said to be the worst. Anger towards those one is powerless to harm makes one's face turn dark, while angry frowns and the like just make one look ugly. However, the merciless anger of those who have the power and ability to harm is said to be the worst, since it is detrimental to both themselves and others. Here, where it says detrimental, or it has these negative consequences, that refers to the destruction of the roots of virtue of both oneself and others. There are many passages, of course, in Sutra and so forth, where it said that out of anger we destroy ourselves through creating heavy negative karma, and then we destroy others through taking away the good things that they have, destroying their opportunities.
Oh yeah. 대다그자 남에비 맨날 치진 좀 니몬도신 자데네 강다찬나래랍자 타와야네 멀리바 대다까지 찍으라 도로사 나시 진주가 송아나시잖아 다 세단되기 어느 바라 대다 들으신 거 봐. 티라셔 꾸이냐 봐봐. 가져다다 라면나 탐자랑 달라라이나 디 체디를 내봐 쳐봐다 모두 체를 쳐만 야위면 안도 쳐봐쳐고 말해 치고 말해 녀몸을 잡고 세단되니 안에 체디를 내봐 마세 안에 체를 쳐만 양아서 먹냐서 안에 쳐봐쳐봐 인자 티라셔 꾸이냐 봐봐 다 들으시구나.
So another way to read this is in accordance with the verses out of the introduction to the Bodhisattva's way of life, where Lord Shantideva says that there's no enemy like anger. External enemies, all they can do is kill us. They can take away our life right now. But the enemy of anger is not like that, because it's able to destroy us both here and in the future. When it says here is able to destroy both self and others, one could say, also read this in the sense of it's able to destroy ourselves both here now in this life as well as in the future, because right now it can ruin our lives, and then by destroying our virtue that we might have created up to this point, it will also destroy the opportunity we would have to experience happiness in the future, good rebirths and so forth in the future lives.
Oh yeah. Bena chamse jigi rigdan gawe nyawa chebe xianla nyoba shinho.
So example that's given for this is like a Brahmin who breaks the rules of his caste or class, which harms not only himself but others too.
Da ti je la chui nyembo den zu jiawa xia ba tai la. Da rang gen di bi zhe wu sai ji. 见了错没事吧？打进没得去，可能我有病难呢。我的我告诉你，让个地比这屋设计见了错没事吧？对，他得看着这些那种，当我那呢，一都没往我一扎，我这地他切吧去。我现他把马英把当年他那把他没得是这个这种马哇退完得了，错光把你人不应得这张了没先这个，俺你这种慢呢，是吧？一都没没这慢呢，退了错光把的呢，他没人不的，是这一把的看着人是一都没用被这退完的，这就退给让给车上俺们来钱呢。这就退完给来去吧，让人俺是前位，因为我给这退完给来去那么一这屋的比这屋的穷啊的，穷呢，他的钱吧就比这位，他的钱吧就比这位，这位是比见钱吧了，我也没钱吧，我退了，俺那看听，退给俺车上俺们个来去告诉的。一度我们这就退完给车上俺妈连俺把钱为这屋的三把贴把在了，俺那看说的，我没些把贴了，错钱把的没人把它送过来，对吧？谁比见钱把了，我没些把贴了，错光把你呀。
So then next comes the a more extensive explanation of the way in which one should use the antidotes to anger. Multiple subdivisions here as well, but the first one that comes up is that it's inappropriate to get angry with respect to something which functions as a condition for the elimination of the results of one's own negative actions, the negative actions we've created in the past. So this is given in verse 140. It is foolish to feel angry when one hears harsh words. It is said unpleasant words end previously done ill deeds. The ignorant and, here it says unwise, I'd probably translate that as ignoble or lowly kind of people, do not want to purify themselves. Hearing unpleasant words is said to rid one of the effects of previously done ill deeds by bringing them to an end. So the way this works is that when we hear someone criticizing us, these words are not, we shouldn't view them as being something that is focus on the current harm that we imagine that they're doing to us. Rather, they're actually functioning to bring about the result of some negative karma that we've created previously, and by exhausting that negative karma, we won't have to suffer the results of it in the future. So instead of getting angry at these unpleasant words that people are saying to us, we should actually feel delight that they're criticizing us and freeing us from the results of the negative actions we've done. So not to feel glad, but get angry at circumstances that cause the end of these negative effects is simply to be ignorant regarding actions and their effects, and unwise or low, low in not wanting to purify ill deeds.
Oh yeah, take it. Kasore. Jewu chune tar cheba. Cheba jebi jewu sebi ke cheba la gar me cheba cho ko ba ni. Ta kare res tenda wa de lende la mo xin. Nga rang gi xian la chu chu ma be jewu yin ba ma xie ba lende la mo xin. Ani tamba ma yin ba. tamba mayin ba tani diba namba taba mide ba sete tani diba namba taba mide ba sete pena langan la men dewi ani men dengan gi zuo de soba shino langan de la men dengan gi ani zuo de soba chao soba na xie.
So again, it's foolish to habituate oneself to anger when you hear harsh words said to you. When you hear hearing these unattractive words is actually functioning to cause the end by drawing out the results of the negative actions that oneself has created in the past. we ought to take delight actually in these harsh words that we're hearing, because they're functioning as a condition for the extinction of the negative karma that we've created in the past. And so instead of, if we don't take delight in this criticism we're getting, but instead cultivate anger towards the people that are saying it and the words themselves, then we're stupid with respect to cause and effect, karma and its results. And we are people that are really low, ignoble, because we don't want to see the purification of the negative actions that we've created in the past. So the example that is given to illustrate this is like an old bull that kills the cowherd who gives the bull medicine.
Oh yeah. Then I say, "Jenny, tell you what, you know, the China Dagu, you got to want to in the so I say, Jenny, Michigan, China, but it's Yena. Ani, or do not get you to the China that Rangu, you got it. And China got the Chogoyana, and then Rangu do Ludela Chogoa. You got to want you to do in Ba. Limena, I'm part of the China around the one Michigan. Or that 10 I see you buying belly. The China Dagu, you got to want to in the said that I didn't do you.
So there's a verse in the introduction to the Bodhisattva's way of life again, or conduct, that says something to the same effect, that when someone strikes us with a weapon and causes a wound, what should we get angry at? Should we get angry at that person wielding the weapon, or should we get angry at our body? Our body is really the condition that is necessary for the arising of this wound and the harm that befalls us as much as the person wielding the weapon. To get angry at the person wielding the weapon and not be angry at our body as serving as an equally important condition for that injury to occur is foolish.
Oh yeah, that is cousin daddy. You do me always tricky. Rank never Tawata injuries. And never but let Tawata mind on only never chimney bear. That's all Miribatella. Never you do more on you get them. Taking number legend, what tell us, shall you not young to them? Or Junzen Dijan, Aneta, to the Trump Miridays, Carriers, or Rangi sick band, Paroboti, to the Mavala Dana, Rangi sick Parobotella, never Tabata Reminde, only you never your Mari, say Junzen Dijan, to the Trump Miride. Situ mo yamba yido mo meom rala ngoni jineba misete se ngoni jineba misete 대잖아 rala ngoni jineba chena 아니 그냥 가나야 만들면 내가 쳐고래 그냥 가나야 내가 쳐대나 아니 된다고 어디 좀 양바 되게 rala 내가 쳐 대잖아 마오라를 라야 그냥 가나야 맞아 내가 쳐게나 마오라를 라 내가 쳐와 줘야 이상 내가 이도 뭐 왕오니 예미세 that is
So the next point is that it's the idea that unattractive words themselves are injuring us is simply imaginary, but it's not the case that these things injure us. They function as sources of injury intrinsically by means of their own intrinsic nature, and that being the case, it's inappropriate to get angry when we hear these unattractive words said to us. And so verse 141 says, for the following reason too, it is inappropriate to be angry about harsh words. Though unpleasant to hear, they are not intrinsically harmful. Thus it is fantasy, or it's just imagination, to think that what comes from preconception comes from elsewhere. It's just one's own imagination or presumption that it's due to some other's source. Through hearing harsh words is unpleasant, they are not intrinsically harmful. Otherwise, the speaker would also be harmed. So when we hear harsh words, it requires us to conceive of them as being harsh and to produce a sort of Rang ngoni ki nyu pachepa michite.
Ngoni ji chizu la nya ba yi du me wa de rang la ngoni ji ne ba michite se. Ngoni ji ne ba chana gyu jian kan la ya ma de ba ani ne ba chu gu re. ngoni ji ne ba michena 아니 이제 가 메시데 대체나서 오니지 내가 채나 안에 마와보랑 진짜 마와보다라는 라니라야 내가 쳐고래 규정 간라 맞아 마와쳐봐 진짜 마와보라니라야 내가 쳐봐 주고래.
So these harsh words when we're hearing them if we hear them as being is it the case that we hear them it's inappropriate to get angry at harsh words by means of this reason. Hearing these harsh words, which are unpleasant, even if they are unpleasant, these words don't injure us intrinsically. Here, intrinsically would mean if they were to be intrinsically harmful to us, cause us injury by themselves alone, then they wouldn't depend upon any kind of other causes and conditions. They'd have that power within themselves without relying upon any other causes and conditions. And if that was the case, then they would also operate to cause harm, even to the person who is speaking them. And therefore, when we think, oh, this person is criticizing me, this occurs out of one's own ideas, one's own thought, and this arises the thought that this person is injuring me and is an object of hatred. We think that this is coming from somewhere outside of ourselves, but actually it's arising simply out of our own thoughts.
Oh yeah, only you never miss a teacher, and then Dala, you need metal, Yamdo, Ranget, Namdola, Nambatobale, and then Shetan could never chuana, Ranget Namdola, Shetan never chum, Shetan Jewana, Tender with nobody, any Shenji, Shella, then a chung, Yamdo, and a Rangi, Lobatam to Sabare. Lomatam to Seji, Rangi Tobe, never Chevala, or Rangi Lomatam to Saba in the Rangi Toba, Namdo Grala, never Shetan Kiwale, and never Chevala, Shella Toa Miriso.
So again, this being the case, then when we think this person is criticizing me, this arises out of our own thoughts. And when this sense of injury out of the anger that we feel from this, when we think this sense of injury that I'm feeling is coming from this other person, that's really just a pure presumption on our part, or kind of false assumption on our part, because it's inappropriate to get angry at something other than the injury that we're experiencing due to our own thoughts. It's our own thoughts which are harming us, and other than that, there's nothing to get angry at.
Oh yeah, then I choose more. She, any Munguna, Aminana say, Savi Tateve. Chujimashi, Munguna Sasavi Tateve, Chimi Pomo, Rangi Chumagi, Pomo Yin Yamdu, Yamne, Pelamoti Chisa, she Mewala. Rangi Pomo Yin by Shewana, Chawa Moshi, Sao, she, and a concept Mawashino, so on.
So the analogy that's given for this is that there was a herdswoman, wife of a herdsman, heard someone eating in the dark, and thinking that it was the junior wife's daughter, she said, "What are you eating, you cow?" Then realizing it was her own daughter, she said, "Ah, my dear pet is eating something."
Oh yeah, that's about Luigi D'Angela. Rana and Shiva Bola and Chaba Chijilo Yimbani. Chita Shiva Bolani, Chaba on Jeba. Tisinyaba Mabola, Chaba Jimijuru, Segana, Ani Luigi Danjanala, Anish Consore, Sheshadon, Shiva Bola, Ani Chaba Shebe, so Shana. 되니 민요 바시키 와 셈마뇨 바시키 셈마뇨 바시키 그나라와 인데 세라 기타 시와보라 차바 엄바 줘바테 티신도 냐바모 보라야 차바 지민주디 치리데 데세라 기타 시와보라니 차바 원줘바 대신 냐바보라라 차바 지미리 세다 데이자레 와 시와보라니 차바 제베 엄바 줘바 티신도 냐바모 보라야 차바 지미디 치리바래 시다라 대다 미줘바 무줘바데 아니 치질로레 단지 치질로레.
So next comes a demonstration that the statements in these treatises on worldly conduct, sort of politics and so forth, worldly conduct, are where it says that one ought to punish someone who is critical of one. That's a perverse kind of explanation of things. It's the contrary of the actual way it is. And so this says here, treatises on, again, worldly conduct state that those who are, she has abusive, I would say this is more like critical of one, specifically critical in a negative way, critical of one should be punished. And it says here, verse 142, just as it plainly says that someone who is critical should be punished, likewise, why should one who speaks pleasantly, flatters one, not be rewarded? Just as it plainly says that those who are critical should be punished, likewise, why should those who speak pleasingly not be rewarded? It would be reasonable to reward them, but since these treatises do not mention that, they are misleading. Here, actually, it doesn't say just misleading. It says they're really contrary to the way things actually are, that these treatises on worldly conduct are perverse in their explanations.
Oh yeah, that is better. Benan Grodinwa Tabatamji, and a parobo sebi semgesi.
The example that's given for this is like the people of Dravida that consider killing because of a mere disagreement, but do not, they think it's okay to kill someone because of a mere disagreement, but do not reward those who speak pleasantly.
Oh yeah, that didn't Shenji Loyudu, and a rank Sawa Cheba, Imba Sawa Chebala, and a Troa Meribatella. Church measure Majang, Kadi Shenji Shenani, Mawabola Tromira, Yanda Mima, Lachi Me, oh, that's Shenla Sheve Rango Jundi, Shenla Sheva Rango Jundi, and then Shenla Sour Chebe, and Shenla Sour Shenji Shiva Chebe, and a Troa Shena. Oh. Church Sharawatan, Lujian Shawatan, and it Timbola Sawa, Timbola Sawa, and Church Majala, Mamajang, Kade Shenji Shena, Mawabala Tromiri, Church Mamajang, Kade Shenji Cherane, Mawala Tromiri, Mawabala Tromirina, Tromiri. Tendravi, Lujian Shawadan, Timbala Sawati Shana, Mamajang, and then send you Muslim to Tongo, send you Muslim to Chubiseri. Temarina Rala Jim mentioned Yanda Mimbala Trova Miribatachi, the Temerina, and then Rala Tendravi Jim mentioned Yanda Mimbala, and oh yeah, Mawa, Mimba Mawala.
Next shows that it's inappropriate or wrong to get angry at someone who reveals one's own faults and makes them known to others. And here it says in 143, anger is unreasonable. Someone might say, anger is reasonable because criticism reveals one's faults to others. And the reply to that is, if that for which you are criticized is known to others, though they are not told, and anger at the speaker is unreasonable, how much more so toward those who lie? So if those things for which you are reviled or criticized, such as your blindness or lameness, are known to others, even when they have not been told, it is unreasonable to be angry with them, the one who mentions them, for even unmentioned they are obvious to others. If that is unreasonable, how much more so is anger towards those who speak untruly when one does not possess a fault? Thus, anger is also inappropriate.
Oh, yeah. That guy said.
It's always inappropriate.
No. You choose today.
Karnashawala.
Ah, choose my last. They do. Oh, Bena Shawala, Shawa Mewatang. So
the example that's given is that it's wrong for a king to punish someone who calls the blind blind, as well as someone who calls those who are not blind blind.
Mela minya shesha wa ngawa chungwa mayinde teje menju minya ba nyanga chungsa tabu nang se o meta member la minya ba tewa la chowa riso shena o member la mi chowa riso shena ju member che member desing se che mi de ba ju member che member desing diba kundu jeba 아니 누가그 아니 디바군도 제바 현동아와라 현동아와 가와타라 현라동 안에 동아잖아 안에 가와타라 안에 치미년바 셰자와 태자마다 내가 좀 와마인데 매라 매년 셰자와 내가 좀 와마인데 야
So the next point is that it's inappropriate to be angry at words which are, even if they're harsh words, people say bad, evil things about you, if people who are inferior to one. It is unreasonable to be angry at hearing abuse from one's inferiors. Abuse from inferiors does not ensure escape. Abuse from inferiors thus should be seen as isolated and trivial. Merely some abusive words from inferiors who like what is profane, or here it means anti-dharma, irreligious sort of behavior, and constantly do ill deeds, taking a delight in others' sufferings, do not ensure one's escape, since they may beat or kill one. Therefore, regarding mere abuse from one's inferiors as an isolated and trivial error, it is appropriate to feel glad.
Oh yeah, 중앙 마인디 디바다 서바서 체베치당. 균전 대지 멤버들 중에 친명연 바 대zam니 가서래. 그 양가와 주사다 보 나와 아니 가와 주소. 대지 멤버들 중에 친명연 바 대zam니 그 양가와 용사다 보 나와 아니 가와 주소.
So, therefore, regarding the mere abuse from one's inferiors as an isolated and trivial mistake or error, it is appropriate to feel glad. Here, even if you avoid their bad speech, one can still be subject to being beaten or injured by people like that.
Oh, Papa Kamboki. 아니 루션이 패대 미 아니 기다려 차장 알아 가셔서 리바다 말리바 가지 가르치더라 제장 수박 공부래 스라 말리바 지금 제장 수박 공부开朗발래 tembe dita duwa nawa shino tembe dita duwa nawa shino.
The example that's given for this is the Aryadeva promised to bear whatever the people on the other side of the river Sona did, and the teacher, the Buddha, Lord Buddha, gave him permission to go to attempt to discipline them, train them.
Oh yeah, that didn't. Gyömebala ani shiram shirwa tsar jejang gyömebala ani rangla shirwa tsar jejang nyewa meba gaba ni xianne xewa dala ni yuanden junse jang mena kongzhu yuanden mebala kuwa xianba jangba se digi ani kado gyömebala ani kaso gyönjeba shirwa de tsar jebala nyewa medo xiana 希望说闲了那把钱呗，希望扩张俺那边上去的，希望说闲了人都那把钱呗，到了呢俺钱是多把了所以人家就是没得意思，希望得了，让人希望得了，第人都闲了那把钱吧，钱呗，说了俺人那把钱是把的，俺那多把给人家就是讲要买的，是没呢去说啊。去说的电马都原来忙完了，可原来忙完了，可七级了了，先把讲完三的，
So then next comes how it is inappropriate to or how one ought to. Okay. Here it is dealing with the slander or criticism of those who are innocent of the thing that they're being accused of. And someone might say it is not wrong to punish those who slander the innocent or who criticize improperly those who are innocent, to accuse them of doing wrong things. Verse 145 says, if harming others is not even of the slightest use to you, your approval of useless aggression is just an addiction. Retaliation by hurting others, like the slanderer or someone who's falsely criticizing someone, is not of the slightest use to you in reversing what has already been done and so forth. In that case, your approval of aggression, which has nothing but drawbacks and no advantages, is just an addiction to something wrong.
七级落了，先把讲完三的，可我先把讲完三。本来参加农民的多把那些人是的参加农民的多把那些人。
An example is given as like testing a weapon to seeing whether it is sharp or not.
哦呀，他这个什么的钱呢？那随便攀越山呢，空着搞把得了什么？俺那小娃了，什么工程吧？ 我这咱说没有别那呢，他们写完了说把我们就把抬了，看这随便别买吧，上上全部掏去拿，说把我们的，看是抬了开家把特殊人不熟悉也说把我们我，看我熟悉，现在写完了原来买吧了，俺那说把钱钱拿。 说把钱钱呐，他看这随便出去个没结晶，个没结晶，现在那把没些白买吧，那提档简档，那什么的没准备，就那看见没准备，去军档。 书上本主把说，现在在这看这说把白买吧，上上全部投军呐，是大用的呀，这是么？上上全部然后呢，上上全部投把军呐，就开始咱就敲台了，说把光把给咱就敲的台了，开始把台档准备那部熟悉有的，然后人家一年就把钱给吃了，
So the next point is showing how by thinking about the benefits of practicing forbearance or patience, stopping one's anger, and that has multiple subdivisions. The first one is the reason why it's, or showing that it's appropriate to cultivate forbearance with respect to criticism or which she's translating as abuse of another person. And that's given in verse 146. What wise, the question, someone might say, what wise person tolerates others' worthless abuse? Worthless meaning baseless abuse, when someone abuses, criticizes you, but there's no merit in their criticism of you. And then the verse says, if through patience enormous merit is acquired effortlessly, who is as foolish as one who obstructs this? Who would stop that? If through patience one gives anger no opportunity and does not harm others, one will acquire the fragrance and adornment like a flowing river undisturbed by ill will and a pleasing appearance. Then who is as foolish as one who obstructs the supreme path? For such a person assiduously puts great effort into destroying his own good qualities.
Oh yeah, 아니 가서래 소는 전부 토주바 세기 아니 쇠박 공배 내섬지 매점 추주나 수상부 주바 되어서 아니 소는 전부 토바 세가라 우마 주변에 숨바나시 쇠배 제시 끼우 탐바라 판단로다 로미시와다 아니 캐와 주시 캐와를 주와다 아니 사다 미께와다 디바사바라 소와다 소는 전부 송어라 진지바 인게 좀 토바를 주나 지구 가서 남지 초대라 그쳐바다 준비 너무 수시여대 아니 랑그 연된지 좀 받치베세래 되나 시와라 쇠바 코나 캐와 차오 시와라 아니 시비랜도 시미세와 아니 시와들라 아니 쇠바 공바라 캐와 시차오 되나 비밀 가시 랑기 초 속이 초 주제 리바 쇠바 쇠바시노
So, thus, the point here is that by maintaining our forbearance in the face of others' criticism of us, or if they say harsh words to us, they revile us in some way or another, maintaining our forbearance or patience in the face of that is a source of a great deal of merit for ourselves. And so it's only a fool would prevent someone else or stop oneself from maintaining that kind of patience, forbearance in the face of that kind of criticism that one gets from others. And this is expressing the same kind of idea that we find in the introduction to the Bodhisattva's conduct, where it said that out of forbearance or patience, enduring criticism of others and so forth, then we acquire all kinds of good qualities effortlessly. We achieve great merit, comfort in this life and in the next. We're protected by other beings, human and divine beings, and we're eventually able to accomplish even perfect awakening through the virtue of that we acquire through the practice of forbearance. So the example it says here to finish that off, that therefore only those who bear criticism should be called wise. And the example of the contrary of this is like a woman who killed her husband when he had only a little bit of his life left.
Oh yeah, that is correct. That is so. That you are. Siapa kena jumpa ki, coba lah kuat mirip mana. Kuat mirip mana, coba saja coba tu tomden thala jeminu. Tena sian jumpa coba lah, sian jumpa coba lah, jine cuci cuci res. Oh, tadi kini. Oh.
Ganti pema tak pa yimputa. Jempa soni jempa.
Jempa kona la.
Pema tak pa yimputa.
Jempa kona jombi. Jempa kona jombi chowa la kuwa me jempa. Rang la jempa kona jombi sina, sian la.
샴바스나 가서 멤버
디 임바레 디라 샹 저와레 디 멤버 코나 좀 멤버 좀이나 바제이나 델 컨트리도
디 마딱 바인데 디 주디 샴바
오야 샴바 샴바 코나 좀 초와라 쿠와 메르 바데라 초와 세자 캐바도 똑단단라 김민주로 세야되나 균전 대장 초와 방고시 봉대 샴바 코나라 초와라 쿠와 메르 균전 대장 초와 방와 차대 초와 세자와 캐바도 아니 또단단바 똥단단라 내가签名왜叫人民主啊 균전태나 아니 샴바 준비 샴바 바시라 샴바 좀 다다이서 샴바 준비 샴바 바시라 당위 초와라 就今年讲去그걸去的그거 메리소.
The next point is that one should not have any kind of respect towards anger which is directed towards weak persons, that anger which induces one to destroy or harm people that are weaker than oneself. And that's given in verse 147. Aggression especially does not arise towards the powerful. Why then do you approve of aggression which destroys the weak, defeats or destroys the weak? Aggression especially does not arise towards the strong because one is powerless to harm them. Here, yeah, that's a little bit loose, but something like that. Aggression especially does not arise toward the strong because one is powerless to harm them. For what reason then do you approve of aggressive anger towards the wretched or people that are weaker than oneself, which defeats only the weak? No. So this kind of aggression towards those who are weak is the example that's given here. It's like considering yourself to be brave when you've defeated some woman.
초와라 서바 공바데 아니 연대 군지 내인바 네 제송하다 강시 천년 라서바 강시 천년 라서바 대라 공바 깨와주 연대내라 직세바 최지림반 바시인 가데 서바 차나 네바签名的时候 냠네 先进예버의区别 안에 초와셔바리서 잖아 안에 현지라라 네바 쳐봐 서바 차나 안에 판 네바签名的时候 냠네 先进라라 예버区别 초와签名的时候 잖아 미르데.
So next comes showing how that because the maintaining patience or forbearance in the face of anger is the source of all good qualities, that it's appropriate then to generate within oneself joy in that kind of context. So verse 148 says, someone might assert, it is reasonable to get angry since if one is patient. Others may think one is incapable of retaliating and despise one. They reply to that as, it is not reasonable, it's incorrect. Whoever is patient with the source of anger develops meditation. Develops. So okay, that's all right. Develops meditation. Saying you fear the source of good qualities is just foolish of you. Whoever patiently tolerates a cause for anger will develop meditative stabilization on love and other kinds of meditation.
나텔라 같이 전에 라서바 텔라 공부 지와 주루시 강기 초연내라 서바 텔라 세라 강기 초연내라 서바 텔라 참비 띵이 띵라 소비 공부 지와 주베 같이 전에 라서바 텔라 공부 지와 주와세 텔라 참비 띵이 띵라 소비 공부 지와 주베 아니 좀 애쓰지 참바타나 바조와 점지 면로 바조와 점지 뒤서야 공바 채나 연대제 점바 채대
So then that shows that by meditating on patience in this way, if you can develop forbearance and patience with respect to some source that could give rise to anger to you, then you'll be able to give rise to meditative development or cultivation of the different kinds of meditative concentration on love and so forth. And by meditating on that, simply for even a single moment, once one can cultivate that, then it will give rise to 8 different kinds of good qualities.
Oh yeah, that tell us can be and then get to the region to Lundi. Sami Gawar Chua, Sadami Gawar Chua, Chamba Gombalatana, Sami Gawar Chuata. And it's Hanam Jisumata, Tedajani Sumata, Yidewatan Dembata, and Yimideva Meba. And the two that send you Misubata. Bezomeba Rangutan Tobata. And it's some Bijidan, something lost or some Bijidan to Georgia. Kade Choa Majuja, Chamju Yene, Yetobo, so it is but it.
So there's some verses, a couple of verses cited from the Precious Garland, which say gods and humans will be friendly, even non-humans will protect you. This reads a little bit differently in the Tibetan here. You will have pleasures of the mind and many of the body. Poison and weapons will not harm you. Effortlessly will you attain your aims and be reborn in the world of Brahma. Though through love you are not liberated, you will attain the 8 virtues of love, loving kindness.
Oh, ane teacher la, yone la jisheba juju limbo bashi yin se dege, chike sumbe yone jine seba la, nele che mini she, nyebe jishe seba pawani, ane juju limbo bashi yin de. Yende jine pudu chungwa jombi chiro sede ode yende na la jisheba chuni limba bashi yin sede imbada.
So it continues by saying, it is just foolish of you to claim you fear patience and give up the source of the above-mentioned virtues because of contempt regarding your ability to retaliate. For you destroy an excellent source of good qualities. It is like someone who's embarrassed about abstaining from misdeeds.
So
that's the example. There was a man who was embarrassed because he avoided doing misdeeds, and that is showing how foolish that is.
수시 가서 수시 캐서 타체네 캐서 타체네 지된 바로 좋아요 대제 단인 드바에 냐와레서 냠도 삼 담면바 다게 안엔다 캐도 세바 아니 톱된기냐 셈바를 까베서 미톱단 대바게 아니 세바 까와 셈바를 까베 살제바리서 챤나.
So next comes showing how it's appropriate to cultivate patience or forbearance with respect to when others disparage, or she translated disparaged or scorn us. When other people scorn us, it's appropriate to develop patience or forbearance. And it says, someone might say, since it is difficult for the powerful to bear being scorned or disparaged by their inferiors, it is proper to punish them. The reply to that is, who has gone to the next world having ended all disparagement? Therefore consider contempt preferable to ill deeds. And then the commentary continues, who goes or has gone, that's lefties.
Oh yeah. 다들이 수시 채세 타체나 세가라 주 수시기 아니 다 탐제 좀신 아니 좀씩 캐사네 타를 안에 자주사자 매바钱呢 지금 바로도 좋아 뭐 송와 주사자 매바 티셔를 수시 세다를 가서 수시 캐서 타钱呢 지금 바로 좋아 좋아 주사자 매바 钱呢 매바 티셔를 너네 제배 디바산에 파 너네 제배 디바산에 안로 줘왜 나는 다뒤비 디바사발에 냐바 렉소 아니 랑기 다뒤비 디바사발에 냐바 렉소 냠수 셈베 냐서바 차티 티 안로 먼저라 티요 디바 냐서 삼삼바티기 티 안로 먼저라 디바 제배 안저 줘비체 세가라 대지디니 디바라 냐바 렉소 냠수 셈
So this is explained then in the commentary by saying, who is it that goes or has gone to the next world, the next life, having completely put an end to his enemies by overcoming and humiliating them? Not even a few have done this. By retaliating, one creates evil actions, negative karma, and will go to bad rebirths. Therefore, one should endure contempt, thinking it is preferable to the ill deeds or negative actions one creates by subjugating or destroying one's enemies. Through doing the former, that is, enduring the contempt of others, one will not go to bad rebirths, but by doing negative actions, ill deeds, one will.
Oh yeah. King under Mondola, Dibang under Trovesiri. Bena Soji Trugola Tameba Shindo, Casulaya, Anne Yango, say, oh, Casabalaya Yang.
So just as there is no end to a water wheel, there is no end to disparagement either, or this kind of scorn that other people might heap upon us.
대연제기 차당 방송라 소화기 아니 녀보고에 공부기 다 친산이 다사비 주내 집에 녀보검수 됐다니 맞아 사비 주내 집에 녀보검수 온주고 고배 녀보 셰산이 사비 주내 집에 녀보검수니 관계 남시 내라서 양다토니 남시봐 대연하니 녀모남 남야 로드래 미네스 관계 남시내라 쇼음세가 남바시와니 아니 견라 라라베 라라디 제베 뒤세인라 남시내니 내라서 뒤세니 까지 말레레 현도 규베 까지 그 집은 안조 제인바 까지 레레 현도 규베 아니 아랑시 나와 메라 라시 나와 메라 대매베 아니 라시 나와 메바 아니 대매베 라시 지와당 라시 지바양 라시 지와 메 세가 관계 남시 내라데 양다 돈에 남시 바
So the next comes up to this point, the text is given an exposition of the way in which we are to deal with the manifest forms of the mental afflictions, especially anger and attachment, how to address them, think about them, and to remove them from ourselves. And then now is given the means by which we can cultivate within ourselves the antidote, which serves as a means of eradicating the very seeds of the mental afflictions. And so this comes in verse 150, where it says that someone who properly understands the duration and so forth of consciousness, then once one has that, then these things cannot remain at any time. The mental afflictions cannot remain at all within one's mind or within one's intellect. And so here it says that consciousness, because it is something that arises in dependence upon conditions, it's a created thing. And created things are always, moment to moment, transform into something else. That is, each moment they become other than what they were in the previous moment. And that being the case, they don't endure for a single moment by means of any intrinsic nature, and their endurance doesn't exist by means of intrinsic nature. That being the case, because their endurance or duration doesn't exist by means of intrinsic nature, they don't arise by means of any kind of intrinsic nature either, and their disintegration as well is not established by means of any kind of intrinsic nature.
Oh yeah. 가서 감성 못하지 주마단 자와 아니 어디 제진에서 라신지 매배 아니는 감성 주마단 자와 라신지 매신도 라신지 초와 나와 주마단 자와 콘도 치바 체네 니몬타제 빠와 차디스 나조와 관계 나바시비 깨와당 가바당 내와라서와 양다 투니스다 거서를 내와다 깨와다 가바 소와 라신지 주마면是吧 가서를 내가 제주임에 멤버면 멤버 개바체 산재지대 왕의 연기 안득세做那些 전이다 대승거래 나저와 관계 넘버 12 깨와다 가바다 내와라서 양다 두니스 양타범 라시지 주와 두잠 매바 넘버 10 두잠 매바 넘버 10와 되려나是吧？但然西里面把然西里当把那么些话的人呢，天在为然西里当把的亲人，都当把人，天光白，你莫那南阳去一落这了，明年说是落了一了明年吧，你莫帮个这，是对那你莫那南阳落这了明年是对不着。
So then, because it's the case that the arising, the duration, and the disintegration of created things, it doesn't exist by means of any kind of intrinsic nature at all, then the entire three realms is like a magical illusion. And when having understood that the entire three realms is like a magical illusion in that they arise, they exist, and they endure for some period of time, and then they disintegrate, not by means of any kind of intrinsic existence or intrinsic nature, then having understood that they're like a magical illusion in that way, then one is able to get rid of all of the mental afflictions. So this is saying that when a yogi or yogini understands that the arising of consciousness, its duration, and its cessation, when they understand that correctly, meaning that they understand that it doesn't have even a single particle of establishment by means of intrinsic existence or intrinsic nature, then when they have that kind of understanding and they've habituated themselves to it, then the mental afflictions will never be able to reside or endure within their minds.
Oh yeah, that didn't, but 민에서 빼나 두개 신게 잡았던 바 신호 스타 잡았더니까 안에 잡아는 끼끼매 봐 사변 좀 봐인데 잡아는 좀 맞는데 아니 두숨 대다기 안에 사변 좀 봐 안에 두숨 잡아는 제바 인자 제매 봐
So the example that's given for this is like uprooting a poison tree. When you pull the root out, then the limb, the trunk, the limbs, and all of the rest of it can't endure. So the same way, this root of the mental afflictions, the basic confusion, is like the root of a poison tree. All of the other mental afflictions are derivatives, are based upon the basic confusion which misapprehends things as being real or as existing by means of their own intrinsic nature.
Oh yeah. Pena tuki ane saben zamba tena asya. Tena nimon joa. Ane sujine bi nyambo. Ane da yage o kasore. Dejala so midu chamba komba da midu ba komba la. Ane tende ludu ludo komba la so 콤바 체네 타르 안에다 두숨단 뒤자와 덴진 사변나 자 뽕아 차바디 덴주라시 메바 또발레 와 데레 덴주라시 메바 덴주라시 지 추와 진비 진바 수요 마추와라 라시 메바 마또발라 아니 님 사베 뽕아 멤바 디유스유 메바니 대봉와니 님바이 연된된다 녀자와 대단 다소 방왕니 대다 유라 마동와 인지 치수 타그 민세가라 어dim바 대단 대기 당진기 현유메바 마옹선도 마도발라 아니 당진 대단 대봉 민유바 대대 순거래 타르 땡주라시 메바 또발라 뇽베사베 말리바 방와 차오
So then, thus, the conclusion in this section is that thus, at the very beginning, one needs to habituate oneself to the antidotes that enable one to overcome the manifest forms of the mental afflictions as were enumerated above. That is, when one is dominated by desire, one needs to meditate and cultivate within oneself a recognition of the unattractive qualities of the things that one is attached to. When one is dominated by anger, then one needs to meditate and cultivate within oneself a sense of loving kindness towards other beings. When one's in a state of confusion, one needs to, general forms of confusion, think about the way in which dependent origination operates in both the progressive and the reversed fashion. And those are antidotes for these manifest forms of the mental afflictions. And once one is condition oneself to that, then at the end, one needs to gain an understanding that dependent origination entails absence of intrinsic existence. And here it's said that without understanding how dependent origination entails absence of intrinsic existence, there's no way that we can eliminate the actual roots or seeds of the mental affliction. We can suppress temporarily the manifest forms of the mental afflictions, but there's no way to actually uproot and totally eradicate the gross forms of the mental afflictions without having this understanding of dependent origination as being entailing absence of intrinsic existence. And so, but once one understands properly that dependent origination means absence of intrinsic existence, then all of the seeds of the mental afflictions can be gotten rid of and should be gotten rid of.
Oh yeah, that detail. Remember, draw chanju jebi. Chanju jebi ke chasan nyumo shawang kyuwanam chandam midu gombe najo tingi dembe tabin de la go sta tang ko de shaba na xin draw nam xin na nam ba yang da ba zobe chanju ani duba cheba ke ani mo ke nyumo de la 안원주와 다 사변이 예배 나네 차소 니모 원주와 뽕아데 차소 니모 원주에 샤완도 주와 남라 아니 대자가 님보 참바 다시 시원하시 가서 세단 그 님보 참바 아니 대자가 님보 미두바 꽝바 아니 가서 마리비 님보 땡제 루중 루도 꽝바라 소베 난조당 아니 사변 좀바 제비 님보 아니 태권한 영어심도 또비 동반이 땜배 아니 태권한 영어심도 또 왔다네 아미 탑이 되와라 거봐 다 됐은 거서
So then there's a concluding summarizing verse where Gyaltsab Je says, the world, here it says, or living beings in the world, so migrating beings, the world, for the world, the principal obstacle to engaging in the practices of awakening are the mental afflictions, which are desire, etc., desire, anger, and confusion. And all of these beings in the world are controlled by these mental afflictions. So the way in which to overcome these principal obstacles to engaging in the practices which enable one to accomplish awakening is through practicing loving kindness, meditating on the unattractive nature of things, the yoga of meditating on the unattractive nature of things, and through understanding reality. So here, meditation on loving kindness, again, is the antidote to anger anger, and a meditation on the unattractive nature of things which we desire is the antidote to to desire. So these are, again, manifest forms of the mental affliction. And then meditating upon, again, dependent origination as the samsaric process, and the inversion of that as the process by which one achieves nirvana. By understanding that reality, then we can achieve liberation. But in order to achieve actual liberation, the last line of the verse here says, the Buddha sets us in the bliss of liberation. The way the Buddhas do that is through teaching us how to eliminate the actual seeds of the mental afflictions, not just their manifest forms. And the only way to do that is to properly understand, they teach, and for us to properly understand emptiness, which is the absence of intrinsic nature of everything that exists.
Oh yeah, that you can just when you was doing what you are, you won't buy top that be rather share to be driven, rather to purchase that day.
And then that's the title, and we'll stop there.
Sashi Pagi Ju Jing Me To Tram Ri Ra Bling Ji Sangye Shing De Mi De Bo Ki Gan Dak Shing La Par Sho Dagi Chak Dang
Mo So Ye
Wei
Yo Ra Yan Ba
Song
Ye Dang
Che
Hong Ba
Le Bar
U Ye Le
Ne
Tu So Ra So Ro Jin Ye Lo
Lo Pidam Gur Dala Kam Yatayami John Chup Sam Jordan Boche